Hi, my name is Cameron Cole, and I'm the author of Therefore Have Hope. And I wrote Therefore Have Hope, and I'm doing these video devotionals to help people find hope in Christ in the midst of their worst nightmare. And today we're going to talk about empathy. We're going to talk about the empathy of God, why it is so critical to being able to trust the Lord and to find hope when you're going through your worst nightmare, no matter what it may be. So I think one of the most frustrating and difficult things, if you're a person who's grieving a loss, is for people to try to compare and connect on common experience when it's not the same experience. So, for example, if you've lost a child, as my wife and I did, for someone to say, "Oh, I know what you're going through. My dad died, a couple of years ago," and that's a hard thing. That's a really sad thing to lose a parent. And at the same time, it's different. It's different than losing a child. That's not to say one is better or worse. That's just to say it's just not the same. And there is a special connection. There is a special bond that you have with a person who has the same experience. If you're a person who has gone through a divorce, or you're a person who has lost a child through a stillbirth, or you're a person who lost a parent when you were very young, you want to talk to someone who has gone through that same thing because you know that they can truly empathize with you. And there's a difference between sympathy and empathy because empathy means that a person knows what the experience is like. They have suffered like you, and therefore they have a firsthand level of compassion for what you're going through. And so for me, the most comforting thing, perhaps, that I found in God after my son died was knowing that I had a God who had also lost a child. What I wrote on Facebook the morning after really cried out the empathy of the Lord and the comfort that it gave me. This is what I wrote on November the 12th, 2013, the day after my son died. So we are profoundly and devastatingly sad and will grieve the loss of our sweet boy for the rest of our lives. But we can live with hope, peace, and gratitude, knowing that the promises of the gospel are true and knowing that Christ indeed has been risen from the dead. Our God lost his son, and so have we. Our God's son was raised from the grave, and so is ours. All thanks be to Christ. And so I mean this in no way in a disrespectful or inconsiderate way, but I just don't know if I could trust a God who doesn't suffer. I couldn't trust a God who doesn't suffer. And that is one of the great comforts of the God of Christianity, and one of the great comforts of Jesus Christ, God in flesh, is that he is a suffering God. He is a God who grieves. And for me, there is that great comfort of that my God had a son die. And my son, he died very peacefully. He died in his sleep in a mysterious way that we don't really know why, but he just went to bed one night and he woke up in heaven. But our God, his son was falsely accused. He was beaten. He was mocked. He was betrayed. He was tortured. And he experienced judgment on the cross. His son died in an awful way, and God the Father had to stand by and watch it. He could not intervene because his plan was to atone for the sins of his people through the death of his son. And so he had to sit back and watch. And so our God has suffered. And it's not just that he suffered the loss of a child. Jesus, who was God in the flesh, he experienced all the different sufferings of the human life, what it's like to be sick, what it's like to feel physical pain, what it's like to be betrayed by all his friends, what it's like to be hated and despised, what it is like to be ridiculed and to be mocked, what it's like to be poor, to be a person with very little means, just scraping by. Like Jesus experienced all of the difficulties of this life because he came to us and he lived on this earth a full life. And that's why in Hebrews, there is this great word of comfort. It says, "Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to what we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way that we are, yet was without sin. Let us then approach the throne of grace with confidence, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. So effectively, you can see how the writer of Hebrews is saying we have a God who can empathize with us. He feels what we're going through. And as a result of that, we can draw near to him. We can draw near to the throne of grace without fear of judgment, without fear of being misunderstood, because we worship and we follow an empathetic God who truly understands what you're going through. And in that way, you are not alone. You can bear your heart to the Lord and you can receive his grace. I hope this is helpful. And I hope you know that there is hope in our suffering God, hope in our suffering Christ. God bless you.